Friction from grade 8. Firstly, let's look at what is friction. So friction is the force. Friction is a force that opposes the motion of a body. So what does that mean? So friction is a force that opposes motion of a body over another body. Okay. For example, if you have a box on a table and if you push it from the left side, when you apply a force from the left side, friction works on the right side. Friction stops or slows down the object from moving. This is what friction is. It is a force that opposes the motion. Now let's see what are the causes of friction. So friction occurs because when surfaces are not smooth. For example, if you have a very rough road, when you zoom into the road, this is what you'll see. It is not at all smooth. Whereas if you're taking a marble tile, when you zoom into it, it will be like this. Now, when an object moves through the smooth line as well as the road, the object will be like this. But then when you zoom it in, the object will be having its own rough surfaces. But then the rough surface can easily slide across the smooth surface. But then same way, if an object was placed over here and if you zoom it in, you will see the object's rough surface interlocks with the surface's rough surface. So that means friction occurs because surfaces are not perfectly smooth. They have irregularities. So this is what we call irregularities. And they interlock each other, causing an opposing motion. So this is why friction happens. Now let's look at one of the most important topic in this chapter, that is types of friction. So there are mainly 3 types of friction. Number 1, static friction. Now what do you mean by static friction? Static friction acts when the object is at rest. For example, if you have a table and you keep a box on top of this. So right now you're not applying any force on this box. So this box is at rest. When an object is at rest, the friction that acts on this body is called as a static friction. For example, when we push this box, it doesn't move all of a sudden, right? It takes some time to move. Why? Because of static friction present between the object and the surface. The next type of friction is sliding friction. So just like the name, this friction acts on the body when the object starts sliding. So now let's take the same table and the box. So when we pushed it first, the object did not move because of static friction. Now you're giving a little more force and this object starts moving towards this side. But always there will be a friction acting in the opposite direction. And this friction, when the object starts moving, is called as the sliding friction. This is static, this is sliding. This is the difference between static and sliding. Now, the third type of friction is rolling friction. Again, just like the name, rolling. This acts on objects that can roll. For example, the wheels of a car. We'll take a car on a road like this. Now, when this car moves in this direction, there will be a force of friction acting on the wheels when the wheel turns to one side. That friction is called as the rolling friction. So static friction, sliding friction and rolling friction. An important thing that you need to know is that the rolling friction is less than sliding friction and the static friction is the most. That is static friction is greater than sliding friction is greater than rolling friction. Why? Because of the surfaces that come in contact. Rolling, the surface area of a circle is less compared to a box when moving and when a box at rest. This is why static is greater than sliding is greater than rolling. The next important topic is the factors affecting friction. So what is the first factor? Just like before, the nature of surfaces. If the surface is smooth, then the friction will be less. If the surface is rough, then the friction will be more. So nature of surface. Second one is the force pressing surfaces together, or the amount of force. So greater the force, lesser the friction. Lesser the force, greater the friction. So write that down as well. Greater the force, lesser the friction. Lesser the force, greater the friction. So this is the comparison between force and friction. Now, what are the advantages of friction? Friction helps us to walk. So while walking, we exert a force on the ground. If this is our leg, we exert a force towards the ground, and friction. Now, when we walk, friction helps in us not slipping. That is the reason why we don't slip. Now, the second is it helps in writing. When we write, there is a force of friction that acts on the nib of the pen and the surface of the paper. And the third advantage is it helps vehicles to stop or brake. It helps vehicles to stop or brake. These are the advantages of friction. Now, if there are advantages, shouldn't there be disadvantages? Of course. What are the disadvantages of friction? Friction causes objects to wear and tear. If there is a large amount of friction between two objects, there will be some wearing off or tearing of the objects. The second is it produces heat. For example, take an eraser and rub it on the paper. If you keep on rubbing it on the paper and you remove the eraser and touch the paper or the tip of the eraser, it will be hot. Why? Because friction always produces heat. Third example is it reduces the efficiency of machines. Why does it reduce the efficiency of machines? Because more friction in a machine, the more wear and tear as well as production of heat happens. Thus, machines will get bad. These are the disadvantages of friction. Now, what should you do if you want to increase a friction or decrease a friction between two bodies? To increase friction, you can use rough surfaces. So as I said, when the surfaces are rough, the force of friction would be more. To increase friction, use rough surfaces. Now, what about decreasing? To decrease friction, use lubricants. Lubricants are substances that decrease friction. For example, oil or grease. Then you can also use wheels. Why wheels? Because it has rolling friction, and as I said, rolling friction is the least or the smallest friction. These are the frictions that happen on solids. Now, what about fluids? Fluids are the substances that are liquids and gases. So liquids plus gases is what we call as fluid. So are there friction acting in liquids and gases? Yes. And this friction is called as drag. So drag is the friction acting on liquids and gases, or drag is a friction that happens on fluids. For example, when you drive, or if you have traveled in a bicycle, then when you travel faster, the air, you'll be feeling a gush of air on your face. That is called as drag. It is basically the air resistance. So air resistance is one of the frictions, and it is a drag. So once again, summing up everything, friction is something that opposes motion, and it is caused by irregular surfaces. And there are three types: static, sliding, and rolling. Static friction is the greatest friction, and then comes sliding friction, and then comes rolling friction. Then friction can be useful as well as harmful. This is the full chapter of the lesson in grade 8, friction. If this video helped you to understand this chapter completely, please like and subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.